Welcome to Tarzana. Welcome to MixLA. I'm Chris. Thanks for coming today. So come on in. We'll roll on inside. We'll give you a little bit of the tour here. If you go back to the beginning of SSL, this is where George can help me. This became this is an E console. So this became their most popular console that started in what, 85? Yeah. 85, and the one that they made the most of is the E. And then they had a G console, which this is kind of a G console. What designated a G console was they changed the EQs, they modified the center section, the computer, and gave you a full-size keyboard. So this is kind of a hybrid, which is really their vintage analog console. And probably the one they made the most of, the E's and G's. And now, 25 years later, they're still in operation by guys like me, Clear Mountain, and many other guys have these. But as just a console that is an easy to drive console, that's what was important to me. And that's why I never changed, was A, it's easy to drive, and B, it sonically did what I wanted it to do. And that's the most important thing. Whether you're on a C200 or a Duality or what other SSL you're on, it's how easy it is to operate for you, and how you can get to the finish line without even have to think about it. SSL consoles, this is just going back a smidgen here. This is a really important thing about mixing. Correct me if I'm wrong, George, but the 48-track SSL console was based on having two 24-track machines and having the perfect amount of faders to park it on. And then when they increased the size of when they basically came out with 48 tracks, it was the perfect number. You always wonder where these numbers come from. And that's where the 24-track, and two of them, and the 48 input desk was their most popular desk. So that means you would have three buckets, right? Three buckets of 24 on each side. You'd be able to return the whole song, control it right from here. It would be synchronized. And then they started out by giving you 4 stereo returns up here. So you'd have 4 effects returns that were not automatable, just up here in these pods with EQ, and your 6 sends to the effects. And of course, since with 48, the most you'd really have is 46 tracks. You still have an open pair of faders somewhere. And you still have small faders you could use to return things. So it was the perfect companion to recording technology. There was 24-track machine, and that's what I'm talking about. And that was the standard for when I grew up and for the longest time. And SSL designed these consoles around 24-track machines. If you could all have a desk, or all have a Duality, or all have a C200, or an AWS, one of their consoles, you realize that when you have the big desk in front of you, you feel empowered to be in control of something. When you have a screen and a mouse and a keyboard, you feel like a telephone operator. But I mean, really, SSL devised the simplest, most efficient automation system ever with this console, and really became something that they went from, and it changed the whole world of music, really. This automation, this actual automation, what happened was it turned records from sounding one way back before the SSL console to sounding another way, to what we know now. All the things you did with automation, I think it was probably Clear Mountain was really the guy that really took a handle on it, but once you started to be able to automate all the moves and do all this muting and everything, it just changed how rock became. It really made a turning point. I mean, the console, of course, made even a bigger difference, but that's yet another part of the story. And then right here, see, the greatest design thing that they also came up with SSL being was, here's where you drive. Here's the gas and the brake right here. So, I mean, I know that trying to navigate in Pro Tools is not user friendly. You just do it by feel. The thing in Pro Tools is you can't go play, stop, play, stop, play, stop, fast forward, play. It won't catch up, ever, and never will. See, that's a big front. There's a lot of wait time. People say, oh, Chris, there's a lot of wait time with the reels. What wait time? Actually, I can hit play and stop and play and stop, and you're never going to catch me. But that format's so old. Well, have you come up with something that's quicker? But what it is that you're sitting here driving the music, and it's second nature. It's not like you're thinking about it. You're not scratching your head going, can you get my bass sound like a little bit thicker and deeper? And he hasn't even said the word deeper, and you've already done it, and it's over. Most of the moves I make, we listen to like I have a boom box over here, or they're saying, could the bass sound be a little growlier? I've already tweaked it as soon as you said it. He goes, did you change it already? He goes, yeah. Oh, I guess it's okay. Well, I already changed it. You build it in as they go. So the whole driving thing is just a lot better this way. That was probably one of the greatest inventions that these guys came up with, George, is total recall. So one thing about your job, let's talk about just that whole concept of the gig. And for me, a lot of times is that, okay, this mix just happens to be on the console. I could have just had him put anything up, but I just thought, this is pretty cool. Let's leave this song up. Normally, it's done and I flip right to the next song. And if I have to make a change in this song, we'll recall back to it. That's part of the workflow. So it's really important, if possible, to make your rig so it's repeatable. And I made this whole thing so it's repeatable. And it's been like that for the longest time. As soon as I first worked on this console and was able to take snapshots of each setting, I thought, okay, great. This opens a whole new world, because here's a perfect example. And this happens a lot of times. I'll mix an album for a band. They're on tour. They're not showing up. They can't listen to it. They can't comment on it. But I only have these 4 or 5 days to mix it. So I'll just chug along and mix all 12 songs at my leisure, usually with the producer. Usually the producer's available and he signs off, and then the band, hasn't heard anything. So it's all done, and then we send them the files via the internet, CD, whatever, right? And then if they have any comments, or sometimes they have a comment for maybe 2 or 3 songs, like, well, turn the gong up, or, more chime or something. Or turn me up. It's usually turn me up. You get notes from the guitar player, and it's all about the lead guitar. Or the drummer, my snare drum's not loud enough. That can happen. So they're like, well, you got to recall it. So then we're like, okay, let's recall it. So they made it very easy with this. Actually, let's look at our. It's called the setup, right? So I always come up with a nice simple name. It's called T1 Finals. So then it has auto scan. So I'll just push anywhere, right? If you look at the screen, you notice that that's how it should look when it matches perfectly, right? Now, if I go to channel 9 and just start changing it, you see a white line, right? This is the simplest concept there is. So when all the white lines go away, then it's where it was when you took the snapshot. You understand what I mean? So this is a recall for this song. This is a very invaluable tool. So to make sure that your workflow is perfect, a very important thing is that no matter what you do as an engineer mixing-wise, you're going to have to get back to it. You're going to have to be able to put that mix back up. You can make the greatest mix in the world, but if you can't repeat it, then there's a problem, at least for me. Now, some people use gear where it's kind of not recallable. Certain consoles, it would be like there's too many settings, or it's not a recall desk. This became the most valuable tool besides the automation, because no matter what, I can always put it back to where it was. If someone has a change, if Paul McCartney calls up, or Pete Townsend, or Adam Lambert, or anybody wants to change something, or the producer, or Rick Rubin, or Bono, or Billy Joe, when they make the call and it's your workflow and they depend on you, goes, man, I love that American Idiot song, but can you just turn me up in it? Can you just make me brighter? Can you make my bass louder? something that you have to do with the with the mix-up. So you have the recall. You can save a session. You can have a mix in there, pop it up. It's exactly where you left off, right? And with the C200, the same thing. Little snapshot, and it's like instant reset. So that's like really important that you can get back to it. Now, the 200 is completely instant reset. Right, where the duality is this console digitally controlled, where it's going to give you this feel, but then you have to put the knobs back. If you could all have a desk, or all have a duality, or all have a C200, or an AWS, one of their consoles, you realize that when you have the big desk in front of you, you feel empowered to be in control of something. When you have a screen and a mouse and a keyboard, you feel like a telephone operator.